Welcome to the Talkin VAWLS Network. My name is Boogie Bentley. Been off the grid for a couple of days, man. It is good to be back talking Tennessee football with you guys. It was good to be back last night on the EA Sports College Football live stream, hanging out, talking all things Tennessee football. But we got to get back into it, but it also kind of feels like deja vu. It feels like, oh, we've had these conversations before, but we still have to have these conversations. Let's start by something that happened while I was off the grid, and that was Tennessee adding a commitment. You can see the graphic there on the screen from Hayes Fawcett on Twitter. Breaking Colorado transfer corner Colton Hood has committed to Tennessee, he tells On 3 Sports. The 5'11", 190-pound corner played in all 13 games for the Buffaloes in 2024, totaling 24 tackles and 2 interceptions. Will have 3 years of eligibility remaining. I like this ad of Colton Hood by Tennessee. And even if you go back to the previous cycle back in December, Tennessee was looking, they were evaluating corners, and that was even, before the injury to Jermod McCoy. I think Tennessee wanted to add a corner for depth, right? You look at the corners, you've got Jermod McCoy, you've got Ricky Gibson, you've got Jalen McMurray. You were kind of looking at for a guy that would fill out that 2 deep, and I like that with Colton Hood. You got 4 solid corners now, and also it's an insurance policy until Jermod McCoy comes back. When will Jermod McCoy bounce back from the ACL injury? How does rehab go? I think we're all eyeing that Georgia game. We want him back by the Georgia game, but we'll see. But still, adding Colton Hood, I think, is a nice addition there as not only a depth piece, but a guy that can grow. 3 years of eligibility remaining. Again, 5'11", 190 pounds. He committed to Auburn out of high school, redshirted the 2023 season. And then, like Hayes Fawcett graphic says, Colton Hood played in all 13 games for Colorado in 2024, 24 tackles, 2 interceptions. Pro Football Focus tweeted this out. Says that Colton Hood had 215 coverage snaps in 2024, 215, 0 touchdowns allowed, and a 51.7 passer rating allowed. Now, his overall grade from Pro Football Focus was a 68.8 in coverage. He allowed just 17 catches for 241 yards, 0 touchdowns on 32 targets. He forced 7 incompletions and committed just 2 penalties. I found this on 247 Sports. This is from buffstampede.com. Says of the 28 scholarship players that have left Colorado via the transfer portal since late last season, you could make an argument that Hood is the biggest loss for the Buffs. Says he is an extremely aggressive corner that looks to have a future in the NFL after some more seasoning at the collegiate level. Goes on to say Hood was capable of starting with the Buffaloes throughout the 2024 season, did see plenty of game action, but was overshadowed by the impact of Travis Hunter and DJ McKinney at the position. Hunter was obviously the Heisman Trophy winner. McKinney was named honorable mention all-conference in Hood's first start at Colorado against Arizona. He helped limit top 10 draft pick Teteroa McMillan to 38 yards receiving. Excuse me. Says, and when Hood picks off a pass, it doesn't take long for him to go into returner mode. After 2 interceptions last season with the Buffs, Hood picked up a total of 105 yards. So a guy with a bright future. I think adding Colton Hood, again, not only adds some depth for 2025, but maybe also gives you a dude for 2026. Hey, we had some conversation last night. I've had some conversation in the comment section whether or not Josh Heupel has had success in the transfer portal. And I say that when I'm talking about Colton Hood and his potential to be an NFL draft pick. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Deja Vu. But first, I need you guys to do that YouTube stuff for me. Smash the thumbs up down there below the video. It's quick. It's free. It's easy. It helps the channel. I would greatly appreciate it. Also, if it's your first time here on the Talkin VAWLS Network, welcome. We're not experts here. We're not insiders. We're not media. We're not journalists. We don't pretend to be that. We don't sell you something that's not authentic. What we are is exactly what you guys are. We're fans. We're Tennessee Vol football fans talking Tennessee Vols football all day, every day right here on the channel. So if you like that, make sure you subscribe. Click the bell for notifications. You won't miss out when we go live or when we drop a video right now. Live every Sunday night, 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. Yes, we play video games. We play EA Sports College Football, but we talk all things Tennessee football. So come hang out for that. We'll do some pop-up live streams every now and then throughout the course of the offseason. So keep your eyes open for that as well. But let's talk about Deja Vu, because this seems to be something that we continue to talk about day after day after day. We talked about Nikar choosing to stay at Miami. Trayshawn Hurry commits to Louisville, doesn't even take a trip to Knoxville. Keelan Marion, BYU wide receiver, commits to Miami. Ted Hurst stays at Georgia State. Jermichael Carter cancels his visit. It goes on and on and on. And I thought just maybe we had found our guy in Jonathan Brady, Cal wide receiver. He played 2 seasons at New Mexico State, and in one of those seasons, he was teammates with Star Thomas. Star Thomas had tweeted out saying, "This is a dude, this is a guy." Comes into town, visits with Tennessee, and then quickly pulls the trigger, and you can see on the screen there, commits to Indiana. Now, how do you feel about this? These are the conversations that we continue to have. People want to say that Tennessee is broke. We don't have money. We can't close. Kelsey Pope can't close. Kelsey Pope can't recruit. Kelsey Pope's the problem. Austin Price over at VolQuest kind of addressed somebody saying that Kelsey Pope couldn't close. AP says you can't miss when you choose not to go hard. They brought him in. It wasn't a fit in person. He was a nice kid, but you didn't go, wow, look at this kid. He did what was best for him. And that's, again, committing to Indiana. So Tennessee continues to miss. Tennessee continues to strike out at the wide receiver position. But why? Why? What is happening here? And one of the conversations that I've been having with a lot of people is that Josh Heupel has a lack of success in the transfer portal. I disagree with that. I think Josh Heupel has done a fine job in the transfer portal. And I think you can go and look at his track record and look at some of the guys that he has brought in. Hendon Hooker, I get it. He was here before Josh Heupel, but that's a transfer portal ad. Joe Milton, that's 2 quarterbacks that have gone to the league. And that's a common theme here. As we roll down some of these names, you look at some of the pieces that Josh Heupel has added. Maybe they weren't the big splash name. Maybe they weren't the big sexy name in the portal. But you're talking about NFL dudes, 2 guys, Hendon Hooker, Joe Milton, both NFL draft picks. Jermod McCoy is going to be an NFL draft pick. You had a Brew McCoy, Miles Kitselman. What an addition Miles Kitselman was and is going into the 2025 season. McAllen Castles, Dante Thornton, another NFL draft pick. Chris Brazzell, Lance Hurd. The list goes on and on. There are so many guys that I can point to. And, yeah, they may not be the big sexy name. They may not be the big flashy name, but what they were was Josh Heupel filled positions of need. He made that the priority in the portal, and he went and he evaluated, and I think for the most part has hit on his evaluations and brought guys in that we needed to fill out this roster. The flip side of that is roster retention. Keeping guys like Boo Carter, keeping guys like Mike Matthews, keeping guys like Arian Carter, keeping guys that we don't even know about behind the scenes are asking for money or asking for raises. So when some people say that Josh Heupel has been a failure in the transfer portal, I disagree. I think Josh Heupel is not living and dying in the portal. I think he's trying to fill holes in the portal, and I think he's done a good job of that. I thought Brent Hubbs had a great post when it came to Jonathan Brady committing to Indiana, continuing to miss on these wide receiver after wide receiver after wide receiver. This was a long post from Hubbs, but he said they're not going to pay a guy more money than they are paying the guys who they believe are already more talented in the room. I think that's pretty simple. You know, that goes back to something that AP has said. We've talked about on here before. Tennessee is evaluating these wide receivers. They believe their guys are better than the guys in the portal. So why would you overpay that guy in the portal? Well, that leads to an easy narrative of we're broke. I don't think that's true. I don't think that's accurate. That's my personal belief. That's my personal opinion. Hubbs goes on to say also a guy transferring is looking at the room at each school he's visiting. He's looking at the quarterback. That's a fair conversation to have. Joey Aguilar, Jake Merklinger, or if Nico was still here, would it be an easier selling point? They're looking at the depth chart, how many receivers they rotate. He says there is a lot of money being spent in this cycle by schools who have money for the first time. The kid from Grand Valley State could have probably gotten more if he had gone through the process more. Again, Tennessee has a budget to some degree. This is why the head coach gets paid $9 million. I said that many times last night on the live stream. This is what Josh Heupel gets paid to do. Was the kid from Georgia State worth the money? Was Jonathan Brady worth the money? Was Nikar worth the money? Or at some point do you say no? And Hubbs even goes on to say that's what Josh Heupel did with Jacoby Thomas and Christian Charles. They felt like their worth was more than Tennessee was willing to give, and Tennessee said no. And at some point, you got to say, I'm done. I'm out. No, I'm not paying you. I think if you want to have a conversation about this wide receiver room, because if you look, hey, we added the defensive lineman we needed. We added a corner that we needed. We got Joey Aguilar. The quarterback situation's unfortunate, is what it is. Wide receiver is the only position that I think going into this cycle that we've not hit on yet. And it's a fair conversation to have to look back to December and say that's where Josh Heupel failed. You know what? We've talked about this last night. We've talked about it before on videos. Josh Heupel didn't know that he was going to have a problem at wide receiver because Squirrel White didn't enter the portal until late December. And by the time Squirrel White entered the portal, a lot of the big, sexy, flashy names that were out there at wide receiver were already gone. They had already committed elsewhere. So Squirrel White, similar to Nico, not as bad, not as drastic as Nico entering the portal the day before the spring game, the day of the spring game. Squirrel White kind of puts you in a tough situation because the spring portal window is just never going to be filled with the type of guys that you would bring in as a starter and pay starting pay. But it definitely is starting to feel like deja vu, one by one by one. Wide receiver visits Tennessee. Wide receiver commits elsewhere. Wide receiver elects to stay home. What are your thoughts? A lot to unpack. Haven't been on for a couple of days to make a video because of stuff going on in the real world, but I wanted to get on here and I wanted to talk about some of the news that took place over the course of the weekend. Smash that thumbs up on the way out the door. If you like what we do, think about hitting that join button down below. You can become a member of the channel for just $1 a month. You can also go check out our merchandise, bonfire.com/store/Talkin VAWLS. The links to do all that are in the description below. But that is going to do it for this one. This is the Talkin VAWLS Network. My name is Boogie Bentley. Go Big Orange.